Yeah, thanks everybody. It's always great to be after lunch. Maybe it would have been better to be before lunch, but I want to thank the Lake Winnipeg Foundation for having me at the meeting today, and happy to provide a quick update on the Lake Winnipeg Freshwater Ecosystem Initiative. You would have heard a bit about our program from the various presenters already, so apologize if some things are a little bit duplicative, but I'll provide you maybe just a little bit of context from our federal perspective. I think we've already done a land acknowledgement, but I do want to acknowledge that when we think about the Lake Winnipeg Basin, the Lake Winnipeg Basin crosses Treaty 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and 10, so it does cover a large portion of our landscape, and working with our Indigenous partners is definitely a priority of our program. Originally, I was going to provide a little bit update on Lake Winnipeg Basin, but I think different people have already covered that. But I maybe will just provide a few highlights that resonate with our federal programming. Again, spend some time specific on our Lake Winnipeg FEI, on how the Government of Canada is supporting efforts in the basin and what we do through our program and how we work with partners. And then talk a little bit about what we're trying to move in our new generation of our program, really focusing on targeted action and working with collaborators. So again, this, I think, replicates a lot of what others have already presented, but we do know that the lake and the basin is really important for the economic and social and environmental benefits of Manitobans, Canadians, as well as our Indigenous partners who live along the lake. Here's some stats that we think we've all talked about. The lake is the 6th largest lake, the 11th in the world. A couple interesting points that I think that's really resonates with folks. If you think about the fishery and the importance of the fishery, over 25% of Lake Winnipeg's fishery, Canada's commercial fisheries comes from Lake Winnipeg. The lake's the largest reservoir in the world, and tourism and reclamation is obviously really important. We talked a lot about the basin already, on how large it is, how it spans many provinces, and it's home to almost 7 million people and 6 million Canadians. So we do know that it's a large portion of Canada, and an area that we want to focus on. While we do know that the lake experiences regular and frequent algal blooms, primarily from nutrients, primarily phosphorus as being one of the main drivers, one of the unique challenges is that we do have to recognize is 50% of those nutrients come outside of Manitoba boundaries, so this does make this a really challenging issue. And at the same time, ecosystem health of the lake and lake basin is really also being challenged by population growth, land use change, and invasive species. And we heard earlier today from our science panels and others, and we do know that climate change is going to be adding a new complexity to the issue. We're still learning what that may be, but recognizing that the prairie region is already a variable region and covers half of the basin, we do anticipate that climate change is going to increase the pressure on water management across the basin and the lake itself. The one other unique challenge when we think about Lake Winnipeg and Lake Winnipeg Basin is the lake itself is not transboundary, but the basin is, so that's why there's a role for the federal government. But again, given the complexity and the size of the basin, there's really no one true comprehensive mechanism that provides governance for the whole basin as a whole. So that requires us to work with a number of partners and other governance mechanisms as we move forward. So we've got the Prairie Provinces Water Board, who covers the domestic water flow across the prairies that we need to recognize there's opportunities to collaborate. But we also do know that there's other mechanisms like the International Joint Commission, the International Red River Watershed Board, the Souris Water Board, the Rainy Lake Worker Boards, that we need to work with to ensure that we can address some of the challenges in the basin and the lake ultimately. So federally, Canada has been investing in the lake since 2000, investing in work to improve the health of the Lake Winnipeg and the basin since 2007. We've had various different program names. So like the federal government, we like to rebrand our things, so we're now called something different. But we have done work since 2027 with the most notable investment through the Federal Freshwater Management Plan, earlier in budget 2017, and just most recently in 2023. Some of the results that have happened through this legacy investment is we've really started to understand the nutrient sources and dynamics in the lake. Maybe not so much on the landscape, but have a good learning in the lake. Some of this information has supported the development of nutrient objectives, both at the international border, as well as provincially. We've built a lot of partnerships and collaborations across the basin and within different agencies to move things forward. And particularly focused on the large component of my programming has been providing grants and contributions funding to support partner-led action to address water quality. And we really focused on nutrient reduction, collaboration, and Indigenous engagement. And you can see on I don't want to read all of the slide, the whole slide, but you can see some of our key accomplishments from 2017 to 2024. So as I mentioned, 2017 we got a larger investment to support on-the-ground actions and partner-led actions. So we've made some significant progress there. And I think there was a question about community-based monitoring earlier. So we have supported our colleagues here at the Lake Winnipeg Foundation, but we do also have supported some other community-based monitoring programs because we do recognize the importance of that information. Through the program, the funding has also supported our science and monitoring efforts. So we've also, as I mentioned, provided a few highlights of our science accomplishments, understanding the lake, and some of the observation information that's been happening there. So I encourage you to take a look at that. But recognizing we did make this improvement, there's still much more work to be done. We do recognize that there is a need to continue to accelerate nutrient reduction, continue to leverage in science and knowledge to target action. We do want to do and hope facilitate the opportunity to advance knowledge mobilization to support decision-making, again, at all scales. And then the other thing that we really do recognize that we need to do, continue to do, is support reconciliation and enhance Indigenous inclusion in freshwater decision-making. So that's sort of kind of where we came from. So in 2023, the Government Canada made a historic investment in freshwater management across the country. This included standing up this Canada Water Agency, but it also included investment in 8 freshwater ecosystem initiatives across the country, and one of those were Lake Winnipeg. So under Budget 2023, we've got 10 years of funding to support work in the lake and the basin, about $64 million. That includes science and monitoring activities, on-the-ground activities, and things for our program. So it's great to have some long-term investment. And given that we have a little bit of a longer-term investment, we are really trying to respond to some of the challenges in the areas where we think that we can impact the most. So in particular, moving forward, and I'll talk about this in a little bit later, we really want to develop a framework to test, implement, and evaluate more targeted approaches for nutrient reduction. While we do have a 10-year investment of funding, that funding envelope is not as large as the challenge of improving the health of Lake Winnipeg. So we do want to look at options where we can get the biggest bang for our money. Another big component of our work is advancing knowledge mobilization, again, from diverse knowledge systems, not only with many of the scientists here in the room, the Lake Winnipeg Foundation, but many of our Indigenous partners. We do really want to bring all of that information together to support decision making. And that includes advancing some state of ecosystem health reporting so that we can, again, support local decision making on the ground. And one of the other things that we will continue to do, again, is continue to support our enhancement and participation with Indigenous peoples partly through the Canada-Manitoba Agreement, and I'll talk about that in a little bit later. So one of the things that our program does do, as I mentioned, is we do fund partner-led action through an annual call for proposals. And our priorities this year and moving forward are nutrient reduction, and through our nutrient reduction stream, we've support projects that some of our watershed districts have done. We talk about, and we've provided some science and innovation work and knowledge mobilization. So again, on the ground work, trying to address science gaps and trying to mobilize that information. Our 2025-26 call just closed a little while ago, so hopefully some of you I know I think might have applications to our program. So hopefully you'll be hearing in the coming months coming month or so about those applications. And the other thing we did this year is we implemented a new pilot for our Indigenous stream. We recognize that the capacity and flexibility available to support Indigenous-led projects has been challenging through our program. So we've adopted a new process where we've implemented a letter of intent process and then an application process. So that stream's still ongoing, but hoping to learn from there how do we better decolonize and be more responsive to our Indigenous partners in advancing common areas of interest. And I also just want to reiterate, while our program focuses on partnerships and supporting partnership-led work activity, Environment Canada, particularly our Science and Technology branch, continues to lead the federal science and monitoring program. So we actually have an agreement, now that we're a standalone agency, we have an agreement with our colleagues at Environment Canada on how they support the program's science needs, but that science is still being led by our colleagues at Environment Canada. So before I get a little bit too much into where we're going, I just wanted to reiterate the conversation that we had today, that I think there's lots of people doing great work, lots of things are happening at different scales, and I think maybe to your earlier comment, Jonathan, I think the way for us to make change is that we have to be working at the local, regional, interjurisdictional, and international level, because it is a bit of a complex issue. So I just quickly wanted to highlight here some of the various partners we work with. Again, many of you are in the room on how we can advance our efforts to improve the health of Lake Winnipeg. I do just want to highlight our collaboration with the province. So obviously, federally, provincially, we have shared responsibility for water, but at the same time, we recognize that the lake itself is not transboundary, but we do continue to work with the province and others. And this MOU provides an opportunity for us to work more collaboratively and coordinated between Manitoba and Canada. Brings together all the federal and provincial departments that are working on Lake Winnipeg into a common space so we can have some shared conversations and have some discussions on where we can work together and move things properly. And one of the things that we really are trying to advance through this work is ecosystem health reporting. So I know a few of you might have been at a workshop we had last March, but we continue to work on trying to make sure that or figure out a path forward on how we can advance ecosystem reporting. Oops, wrong button. So as I said earlier, we recognize that we have limited budget, and we do know that after 10 years of monitoring like the Lake Winnipeg Foundation has done and others, and through some of our own federal remodeling, we do know that there are areas that contribute more phosphorus to the lake than others. And given our limited budget, and our ability to need to work with partners, what we are trying to do with our program is to take a more targeted approach, to implement, test, and evaluated approaches to reduce nutrient loading in those areas. Again, moving forward, that part of this framework, we want to do this in collaboration with many of you in those rooms, because it'll take us all to move the bar. So as we develop this targeted framework, we are looking to leverage expertise, experience, and programs of interest. Again, we're only one small programming in the basin that has interest in Lake Winnipeg, so there's opportunity to build collaboration. As we think about examining new approaches or new methods, we want to make sure that the learnings are applicable to as many people as possible. Maybe there's things that we learn through our federal program that a provincial program could do or a non-government program could work on. And in turn, this allows us to maximize our federal investment and then ultimately enhance those partnerships that we already have, but provides us an opportunity to continue to build on those partnerships in the near and the long term. So I don't want you to get too much up in the details, but this is kind of our graphic, the way we're talking about our targeted delivery framework. We're talking about targeting in sort of three ways. So geographic targeting, really trying to focus some of our on-the-ground investments, working in collaboration with our watershed districts and other organizations that support land management change in those really high contributing areas. So we're trying to direct more of our money to those areas. So focusing on highlighting relevance, and then also focusing our investments in the most effective actions. So we really do want to focus our funding on those practices that are known to reduce phosphorus in our landscape, as well as exploring new and innovative practices. Maybe we need to look at how we bring more than one practice on a farm or a region to maximize BMP effectiveness in addressing the phosphorus issue. So that's more BMP-specific targeting. And then the other kind of basket of information we're trying to do through our targeting is looking at issues-based targeting, really addressing those knowledge gaps. So I think you've heard a lot today about, we've identified the hotspots, we've talked a little bit about still needing to understand the source areas and understanding what BMPs are needed to address actions in those areas. So we're trying to figure out how we can potentially incent or motivate land managers to change landscape management to implement these BMPs that are known to produce benefits for phosphorus. We're also looking under this kind of area of our program to advance local science. So we really do know that we need to do a little bit more understanding on the source. Also trade-offs. We do know that we're asking landowners or land managers to implement practices that are good for phosphorus, but they may not have a benefit for other parts of their farm. So we need to think about how we can incent behavior, change, and address some of those barriers, and understand co-benefits and trade-offs. Like, I'm from a federal program. Our priority is phosphorus for our program. We've got our colleagues at Ag Canada right now. Their focus was GHGs and adaptation. So we know there's opportunities to bring those synergies together because we are all talking with the same landowner. So again, trying to do those things and also understanding the economics cost of these things, because I think that's a big barrier. So one of the work we are trying to understand is what's the cost to land management change. But as we do this, we really, again, want to leverage partnerships and expertise around the table. We have developed an advisory committee. Many of you or your organizations sit on this advisory committee. Again, the idea is to really trying to figure out how we coordinate and collaborate across our organizations to maximize outcomes. So maybe I'll just kind of get into a little bit of some of the initial work that we've done under our targeted approach now. Chelsea's already spoken to this a little bit. So one of the biggest, I think the first outcomes of our work is we brought a number of experts and stakeholders around the room to understand and help us identify where we should be investing some of our on-the-ground funding for BMPs. So as Chelsea mentioned earlier, we have leveraged the Lake Winnipeg Community-Based Monitoring Program, as well as one of our federal models, Sparrow, as well as some expert opinion to help us come up with a map for our annual call for proposals to help us prioritize where we want to provide investment. So the scale at which this map is presented or identified the hotspot areas is probably more conducive to program delivery, because I recognize within these individual hotspots there's lots of variability. But from a program delivery perspective, I think this was an initial first step that we're trying to see if we can better direct our programming and as well provide our delivery agents with the flexibility to try and focus on these areas. So this map was included in our 26-27 call, as I just mentioned. There's opportunities potentially to look at this map again as we get more information and as we learn on how effective this map is in addressing through our call for proposals. So again, thanks to those who sat on the working group who helped inform this work. So just wanted to talk about two other working groups that we've established to kind of advance some of our other areas of targeting. One area that we have created is called a BMP Adoption and Knowledge Gaps Working Group. This is really a catch-all for a lot of things. But again, the importance of this work is bringing people together to really understand what the current state of science is. Do we know enough? How do we communicate that? And how can we influence and message that information so that we're encouraging behavior change or opportunities. Some of the work here, again, will be we're going to have to prioritize some of those BMPs because it's a big area, but again, trying to understand those trade-offs, economic and knowledge mobilization approaches that work best to creating information. And then the second working group we are talking about is and Chelsea I think also referred to it, and I think Henry referred to it earlier, is looking at using a test bed watershed approach to kind of provide an opportunity to bring us all together in a common space or common watersheds to understand some of the key messages to understanding how we advance our programming, really understanding local BNP effectiveness at a local scale, so we understand truly what we're promoting BNPs are effective or when they're not effective or how they can be effective or coupled together. And also getting to the point to understanding at a small scale how much potential level of land management change is needed to make that measurable impact. I know we talked about upstream actions and downstream actions, but we're really trying to understand opportunities. But again, our program does not have the resources to bring us all together, so what we are really trying to do is bring people who have expertise programming together and see if we can work in some common spaces and overlap some of our work so that we can provide a more comprehensive message. And again, ultimately to advance behavior change. So that's kind of in a nutshell, quickly what our program is about. I thought I'd be before lunch, so I made my presentation really short. But yeah, if anyone has any questions, if you are interested in participating in our program, reaching out to us. I know, again, a lot of you are already there, but happy to extend those relationships. And again, as part of the Canada Water Agency that's fairly newly formed, we're just, I think, on our second year of being a standalone agency, we really do see our mandate of bringing people together and collaborating and cooperation, because I think without that level of cooperation or coordination, it'll be challenging to make any of the results that we're all interested in. So yeah, I think that's it. So appreciate the time, and if you have any questions, I'm happy to answer them.